3 a.m. Your eyes snap open and your heart starts racing while the rest of the house stays dead silent. If you have ever dealt with this, you know it does not feel like waking up from a dream. It feels like someone flipped a high-voltage switch in your brain. The data suggests this is not a random glitch in your sleep cycle. We're looking at a nocturnal cortisol spike that happens when your HPA axis, the command center for your stress hormones, stays in an active state. You should keep in mind that your specific chronotype and your usual wake-up time can shift these readings. So one bad night is just a data point rather than a full diagnosis. We have put together a 72-hour protocol based on light, temperature, and timing data to force your rhythm back into alignment. To fix the cycle, we need to look at the actual chemical shift happening in your body during those early morning hours. Your cortisol levels do not stay flat while you sleep. The numbers usually bottom out around midnight and then start a slow climb that gets steeper as you approach your normal alarm time. This is a natural process where your body prepares the fuel you need to function once you actually get out of bed. The clinical picture looks much different for people struggling with chronic insomnia. Research shows that cortisol levels stay measurably higher during nighttime waking periods compared to deep sleep, and those levels continue to climb until they peak right at sunrise. This means the spike you feel at 3 a.m. is not a separate problem from your daytime stress. It is just the same stress curve arriving too early and hitting your system too hard. This creates a loop that feeds itself because elevated nocturnal cortisol is linked to waking up more often throughout the night. When you wake up, your stress system stays switched on, which then makes it even harder to fall back into a deep state. You end up waking up because your cortisol is high, and then your cortisol stays high simply because you are awake and frustrated. The pattern of these nights matters much more than a single bad experience. It is important to remember that waking up early naturally produces higher cortisol readings, so we are looking for a consistent trend over time. If this happens to you every night, it is a sign that your internal clock is out of sync with your actual schedule. There is another factor at play here that has nothing to do with stress hormones. Your core body temperature needs to drop by about 0.2 to 0.4 degrees Celsius to reach the N3 stage of deep sleep, where your body actually recovers. REM sleep happens when your body warms back up slightly. So if you are running hot, or your stress system is firing at 3 a.m., you are fighting two different biological forces at once. Generic sleep hygiene usually fails because it treats your rest like a single light switch. In reality, you have a hormone lever and a temperature lever that operate on two different clocks. Since cortisol and temperature are the real drivers behind this, we are going to use a 72-hour sequence designed to reset both of them at the same time. Day 1 starts the moment you open your eyes. You need to get yourself in front of somewhere between 2,500 to 10,000 lux within 30 to 120 minutes of waking up. And you should stay in that light for 20 to 60 minutes. This means you need to be outside or using a high-quality light therapy device rather than relying on a standard kitchen bulb. The timing is this specific, because a single 30-minute dose of morning light can shift your melatonin timing earlier on that very same day. Depending on how bright the light is and how long you sit in it, you can expect a shift of roughly 10 to 30 minutes. The data gets even more precise, showing that 1 hour at 8,000 lux produced an 11-minute advance, while 3 hours at 3,000 to 12,000 lux produced advances between 15 and 27 minutes. This is a tool for phase timing rather than a way to suppress cortisol. In several trials, bright morning light actually increased the cortisol awakening response by up to 76%, which is exactly the result you want for a healthy rhythm. You want your cortisol to be strong and sharp in the morning and low at night. So morning light isn't flattening your levels, it's teaching them where to peak. Night 1 requires you to flip the script by dimming the lights and cutting blue light starting 2 to 3 hours before bed. You should also add a warm bath or shower about 60 to 120 minutes before you plan to sleep. The data on this is strong because it shortens how long it takes you to fall asleep by boosting heat loss through your hands and feet, and that drop in temperature mimics the natural cooling your body needs to drift off. Passive heating helps you fall asleep faster and can deepen your early sleep, but it is not a reliable way to shift your circadian clock. Some studies show no change in melatonin timing at all after a warm bath, so you should use it as a tool for sleep onset rather than a reset. The light exposure is what handles the actual job of resetting your internal clock. Days 2 and 3 are focused on the volume of light you receive. A camping study found that a single weekend of natural light exposure without any artificial lighting advanced melatonin onset by about 1.4 hours. When you compare that to indoor lighting, which delayed melatonin by about an hour, you see a 2.4-hour swing just based on where you spend your day. That weekend effect captured roughly 69% of what a full week of camping produces, meaning you only need 2 or 3 days of doing this on purpose to see results. Practically, this means you need to spend real blocks of time outside during these 72 hours, especially in the morning and around noon. You also have to cut artificial evening light completely, rather than just dimming it a little. Caffeine is another lever that is easy to miss during this process. While there is no fixed consensus on how caffeine interacts with a shifted clock, the average half-life in healthy adults is 4 to 5 hours. You should cut your caffeine intake by early to mid-afternoon during this reset window to protect the natural evening decline in cortisol that caffeine tends to block. When you put it all together, the system is simple. Morning light anchors your clock forward, evening heat drops your core temperature for faster sleep, and darkness at night protects your melatonin. These three levers running on repeat for 72 hours are what actually move a stuck circadian rhythm, because the stack is always more effective than a single habit or supplement. We need to talk about the things people ask about most, like magnesium L-threonate. The clinical data shows that taking about a gram a day in the evening can improve deep sleep and REM scores compared to a placebo. While that is a useful tool for shaping the quality of your sleep stages, the evidence that it lowers nighttime cortisol is very thin. If your goal is to fix a 3 a.m. cortisol spike, magnesium is not the lever that is going to pull that off. The strongest data for managing cortisol does not come from a supplement at all. Mindfulness and relaxation techniques show the most consistent effect on cortisol levels, and this is backed by a meta-analysis of 58 separate studies. This is a much more reliable signal than anything you will find sitting in a supplement bottle. Phosphatidylserine and ashwagandha have the clearest human data for blunting a cortisol response. But there is a catch to those findings. Almost all of that data comes from stress test scenarios or morning readings, rather than tracking what happens to your cortisol at 3 a.m. specifically. These options are promising, but they are not proven for this exact use case yet. We also need to clear up the myth about blue-blocking glasses versus actual darkness. Many people assume the glasses do the same job as turning the lights off, but no direct trial has compared the two for cortisol suppression. The data shows that blue blocking protects melatonin reliably, but the effects on cortisol are inconsistent or absent entirely. Darkness should be your default, and you should only use glasses as a backup when you cannot turn the lights off. The main point here is that this protocol works because it stacks 4 confirmed levers together. You are using morning light timing, evening heat, protected darkness, and an early caffeine cutoff to get the job done. It is the combination of these factors, rather than one single supplement, that does the heavy lifting for your biology. Fixing your clock isn't about one single hack, because the real solution requires syncing 3 specific levers. You need morning light, evening heat, and protected darkness on repeat for 72 hours. If you want the hour-by-hour map for this protocol, check the pinned video and subscribe for the next data-backed report.